Ladies and gentlemen, I ask that you take your seats. The minister is about to enter the room. I ask that you take your seats immediately. Thank you. Senator the Honorable Royal Reid, CD, JP, Minister of Education, Youth and Information, Jamaica. Mr. Denzel Thorpe, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport. Mr. Dean Roy Bernard, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, Jamaica, and Permanent Secretaries around the world. Dr. Grace McLean, Chief Education Officer, Minister of Education, Youth and Information. Dr. Winsome Gordon, Chief Executive Officer, Jamaica Teaching Council. Reverend Wayne Smith, Pastor of the Lilliput Circuit of Baptist Churches. And forgive me for the pronunciation going forward with unfamiliar names. Dr. Claudia Urube, Director, Regional Bureau for Education in Latin America and the Caribbean, UNESCO. Dr. Charmaine Villet, Co-Chair of the International Task Force for Teachers for Education 2030. Dr. Edim Adubra, Head of the Secretariat of the International Task Force on Teachers for Education 2030. Mrs. Catherine Grigsby, Director of the UNESCO Kingston Cluster Office for the Caribbean. Sireniku Sina Yao, Permanent Technical Secretary of the Togolese Education Sector Plan. His Excellency Sengdengwe Lachandau, Minister of Education, Sport of Lao People's Democratic Republic. Ms. Melis Reps, the Minister of Education and Research for the Republic of Estonia. His Excellency Abdullah, the Ambassador Permanent Delegate of the United Arab Emirates of UNESCO in Paris. Members of the Steering Committee of the International Task Force for Teachers. Other distinguished delegates of UNESCO. Local representatives, heads of agencies and directors in ministries of education, youth and information, educators, online viewers across the world, good morning. Buenos dias, bonjour. The 11th Policy Dialogue Forum for International Task Force on Teacher Education 2030 convenes today, guided by the theme, Strengthening Teacher Education, a prerequisite for quality teaching and learning. Conversations on teachers and teaching are critical to the overall achievement of Sustainable Development Goals. Today's opening ceremony represents an opportunity for leaders in the field of education to evaluate through rigorous discourse concerning the quality of teaching, training, and learning through facilitating a common understanding of the current state of teacher and teacher competencies. It is with great pleasure that I accept the honor of welcoming you to the tourism capital of Jamaica, the friendliest city in the Caribbean, Montego Bay. It is fitting that this necessary discourse occur in a place ripe for possibilities and opportunities, ready to embrace the change. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause, please. I now invite to the lectern the Reverend Wayne Smith, the pastor of the Lilliput Circuit of Baptist Churches, to offer prayer.
Good morning, everyone. May I invite us to stand as we go to God in prayer. Let us pray. Creator, our God, we, your people, have come from various places, various distances, various parts of the world, gather in this place at such a time as this, gather to seek to discern your way for us as it relates to teacher education. We pray even now, God, that as we come with an open hearts and minds, that, Lord, you will guide us, you will watch over us, you will allow us to experience a renewal, you will allow us, mighty God, to participate in this conference, knowing that our contribution will transform the lives of those who are coming behind us. We come recognizing the many challenges that teachers are experiencing in our world today. We know that teachers are called upon not only to be educators, but also to be caregivers, to be nurses, to be counselors, to be mediators, and so much more. We note also the challenges that we are experiencing with our children in our world today. Children who are prone to crime and violence. Children who are prone to abuse. But even as we come, God, we come against the background of the many blessings that you have bestowed upon us. The gift of being a teacher, the gift to mold and nurture the lives of those who will be the men and women of tomorrow. We have come also knowing that whatever decision we make today will be the one to shape those who will come tomorrow. And so, Lord, as we come, we pray that you will be the one to lead, the one to guide, the one, oh God, to offer us the intuition that we need to make the right decisions. Lord, we commit all the proceedings in your hands today, tomorrow, and for the rest of the days of this conference. And let it be, O God, that when we shall come to the end of this conference, we can say it was good for us to be here. Let it be also that as a people, we will get together and we will feel all right. This we humbly pray, through your humble name. Amen. You may be seated.
It is my pleasure to invite Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, Mr. Dean Roy Bernard, to the lectern. He will bring us welcome, followed by His Worship the Mayor, Councillor Huma Davis, who will bring greetings.
Thank you very much, Mr. Darian Henry, our Master of Ceremonies, and I claim him also as one of our instructional leaders. Senator the Honorable Royal Reid, Minister of Education, Youth and Information in this blessed country of ours, Jamaica. I regard also Mr. Denzel Thorpe, RPS in the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport. Certainly His Worship Mayor Huma Davis, JTA President of the Jamaica Teachers Association, Dr. Gard Anderson, and our Chief Education Officer, Dr. Grace McLean, our CEO for the Jamaica Teaching Council, Dr. Winsome Gordon, our steward pastor, Reverend Wayne Smith, Lilliput Circuit of Baptist Churches, and we have several, Dr. Claudia Uribe, Director, Regional Bureau for Education in Latin America and the Caribbean, UNESCO. We have Dr. Charmaine Vier, Co-Chair of the International Task Force on Teachers for Education 2030. Dr. Edem Adubra, Head of Secretariat of the International Task Force on Teachers for Education 2030. Mrs. Catherine Grisby, Director, UNESCO Kingston Cluster Office for the Caribbean. And then, Darian, I go into my challenges, as you would have outlined. Siriake Sena Yao Akapo, Permanent Technical Secretary of the Togolese Education Sector Plan. I hope I did well. Her Excellency, Miss Seng Tuan Lachan Taboon, Minister of Education and Sports of the Lao People's Democratic Republic, and she nods at me, that means I did well. Ms. Milis Reps, Minister of Education and Research of the Republic of Estonia, and I got a smile from her. Other distinguished delegates of UNESCO, local representatives, heads of agencies and directors in our esteemed Ministry of Education, Youth and Information in Jamaica, educators, online viewers from across the world, ladies and gentlemen, warm Jamaican good morning. It is with great pleasure and honor that on behalf of the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, and by extension the government and people of Jamaica, I welcome you all to this 11th Policy Dialogue Forum in partnership with the International Task Force on Teachers for Education here in our second city and the tourism capital of the world, Montego Bay. The 10th Policy Dialogue organized in Lomé in September last year under the theme, Teaching a Profession, sought to highlight the importance of teacher professionalization. Since then, there has been a greater effort to examine closer what is required to be an effective teacher in our contemporary context. Hence, this year's theme, strengthening teacher education, a prerequisite for quality teaching and training and learning. This stems from a growing appreciation that teacher training and development have the most direct link to closing the gap between teacher and educational or learning quality in an inclusive and equitable manner. Jamaica, the largest English-speaking Caribbean country, is therefore proud to host this high-level international conference, which was organized to promote the dialogue and exposition of international best practices for the teaching profession. Our anticipation is that the outcome statement from the sessions will advance the confidence and quality of teachers worldwide, and also extend to our over 30,000 teachers on record in Jamaica. Jamaica remains cognizant of the fact that teacher professional development is not an end in itself. Rather, this is an imperative if we are to achieve the targets under the Sustainable Development Goal number 4. The fact that I can read this has to do with the human self-sacrifice in service of our teachers. Give our teachers a round of applause. A constant challenge for our respective countries is to ensure that the teacher education system is relevant, responsive, and that it produces quality teachers able to cater to the needs of learners. The new paradigms for learning and teaching in a rapidly changing 21st century environment add to the challenges of teacher education. More student focus, spiced with differentiated instruction, differentiated assessments, embodied in a more student-focused approach is where the regard is. During the course of this week, we will have the opportunity to examine policy options, the types of training offered, their durations and objectives. We will, of necessity, revisit the nexus between the requirements for high-quality teacher education, national development, goals, and policy and practice. Therefore, we meet today not so much to rectify identified problems, but to share strategies and best practices that have led to improvements in the education sector in different countries. In effect, ladies and gentlemen, we are here to promote a transformative agenda that will make a difference to the education of our young people. To our guests, our partners, organizers, and sponsors, ladies and gentlemen all, I welcome you to what I expect will be a rich and engaging dialogue on teacher education and preparing our teachers for 21st century realities. You are in the best country for relaxed conversations, strategic brainstorming, and of course, immense fun. I did tell the minister that here in Jamaica, it is Jamaica, no problem. Welcome again to the Jamaican Experience as we dialogue together. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Mr. Master of Ceremony, Darian Henry, Senator, the Honorable Royal Reed, our Minister of Education, our Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education, and also Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Gender, Entertainment, and Sports. And if I was to repeat that extensive welcome, I might have probably taken up 5 minutes of what I intend to say to you, our visiting delegates and our friends from across the world. I would say to you again, for Montego Bay, a very, very good morning to you. And I hope you're having, up to now, a very good time in this city. It was the late civil rights activist, Malcolm X, who said, "Education is a passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today." In that spirit, it is an honor as Mayor of the City of Montego Bay to welcome you to this 11th International Policy Dialogue Forum on Teachers and Teaching. Education has no limit, and as Malcolm X said, it is the passport to the future, and I wish to add, to a brighter future. Congratulations to the Ministry of Education and other stakeholders for the vision of hosting this far-reaching forum here in Montego Bay, which is now the fastest developing city in the Caribbean. So we are here at a time when history is in the making. A special welcome is extended to the representatives of some 60 countries, as well as my Jamaican colleagues, who are here to ensure that the dialogue is robust and the outcome is far-reaching. As mayor, my dream is to have a city that we establish it as an education city with priority on quality education for all our citizens. As the tourism capital of the Caribbean, we have the largest number of rooms, and with thousands due to come on stream in short order. We already are ahead of the game in providing accommodation and ultimately employment for qualified citizens. As a country, and particularly this government, emphasis has been placed on ensuring that the 2030 Sustainable Development Goal number 4 is achieved, and this 11th International Policy Dialogue Forum will no doubt put a pep in the steps of all stakeholders in ensuring that we are successful. While I know that Jamaica's education standard is ranked among the best in the world, I must point out that in the Global Partnership for Education, only 1/3 of the countries in the world has achieved all the measurables. Education for all. Agreed by the 164 countries some 15 years ago. Ladies and gentlemen, additionally, 50% of all countries have achieved universal primary enrollment, with Jamaica numbered among those with the enviable record of achieving that feat. While I will not attempt to steal the thunder of our hard-working Minister of Education, I must say that under his leadership, schools across this country have been enjoying the effects of having more resources devoted and delivered to them on time. This means that as a country, and indeed as a government, we have attached a very high premium on our education sector, because we know that the youth are our future and we must prepare them for the future to be the best that this world can offer. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Jamaica, my Jamaica, and I will bequeath it to you for a couple of days. This is also my city, the city of Montego Bay. The sights, the scenes, the offering of this great city, the culture, the music, the food, our beautiful people are here for you to enjoy. So once again, make this conference, of which I'm sure will be a very productive, far-reaching, but please enjoy Montego Bay, the most beautiful city on planet Earth. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The Jamaica Teachers Association is one organization which represents the interest of teachers and addresses various issues, including the quality of teaching and learning. They also engage in extensive professional development and research. It is my distinct pleasure to welcome the president of the JTA, Dr. Garth Anderson.
Mr. Master of Ceremonies, Sir Darian Henry, guest speaker, our own Minister of Education, Senator Royal Reid, His Worship the Mayor of Montego Bay, Councillor Homer Davis, other distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I consider it great pleasure to be asked to bring greetings on this epic occasion of the 11th International Policy Dialogue Forum for Teachers and Teaching. Teaching and teachers represent the lifeline of the society. It is through the teaching profession societies hope to create citizens with the necessary knowledge, skills, and attitudes to make them productive and creative individuals who can meet the demands of the 21st century and beyond. The citizens we mold in the education systems of the world must possess, among other things, excellent communication skills, be creative, collaborative, and great critical thinkers. The impact of globalization, with its focus on high levels of productivity and competitiveness, cannot be overemphasized. It has placed the education systems of the world under great pressure to account for the expenditure of public funds through intense scrutiny of students' performance. Consequently, teachers are being forced to examine their roles and responsibilities in this highly technologically driven teaching and learning environment. Hence, this 11th Policy Dialogue Forum is quite timely and relevant to discuss, strategize, and examine policy prescriptions in order to find solutions to these ongoing developments. It is instructive that I share the theme guiding the activities of the Jamaica Teachers Association this year, which is promoting the teaching profession, a beacon of hope and inspiration to our nation. This theme is very much aligned with the focus of this forum. It was deliberately selected to direct attention as to the importance of the teaching profession and the need for governments to make the necessary investments in order to achieve sustainable socio-economic growth and development. Teachers are indeed the heartbeat of our societies, and there is no doubt that technology has changed how the art of teaching is performed and practiced. Despite this, the teacher, I believe, will not ultimately be replaced by technologies in the classroom. This is the case as the nature of teaching is far more than relaying information, but instead has a high degree of human interaction and investment of self in the lives of those we teach. This is a kind of interaction, ladies and gentlemen, that the robots just cannot provide. Teaching, in my mind, is an engagement of the human soul to unearth all its potentials and nurture these to create human beings who have a full understanding of themselves, their neighbors, the environment, and are equipped with globally competitive skills. Consequently, as a result of the many changes that technology has had on the process of teaching and the education systems of the world, teachers cannot become complacent, but must seek to be on the cutting edge of technology developments so that they can effectively manipulate same for the ever-changing teaching learning environment. As we engage in this discourse, a critical component of the dialogue must be about the role of teacher education and the central part it plays in nurturing the kind of teachers who will be innovative in meeting the demands of the evolutionary classroom. As such, focus must be placed on the quality of teachers entering the profession and steps to be taken to enhance their continued professional support and development. Teacher quality forms part of the lifeline in providing equitable educational opportunities for all students. Truth be told, if we are serious about achieving our developmental goals, a pep in our steps as it relates to investment in teacher education must be an imperative. If not, all our goals will simply be pipe dreams. We therefore are delighted that this dialogue is taking place in our region, since Jamaica has a long, rich history of high-quality teacher education and training, and has the distinction of being the home of the oldest teacher training institution in the Western Hemisphere, the Micro University College, formerly the Micro College. On behalf of the officers of the Jamaica Teachers Association and our 25,000 members, I greet all our delegates, policymakers, observers, teachers, and educators from across the world warmly and wish for a very successful forum. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Anderson. Ladies and gentlemen, let us now invite Mr. Denzel Thorpe, the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport, to bring greetings on behalf of the Honorable Minister Olivia Grange. Minister Grange is also UNESCO's titular minister in Jamaica and sits on the Intergovernmental Committee for Safeguarding of the Intangible Cultural Heritage.
Thank you, Mr. Master of Ceremonies. You know, Mr. Master of Ceremonies, if I were here on my own volition, I would more than likely accept the protocols that have already been established and adopt them as my own. But since I'm here representing the Honorable Olivia Grange, Minister of Culture, Gender, Entertainment, Sport, and Statutes, as recently ordained by the Prime Minister following a recent event. Those of you who would have met my minister would know that if she had the time, she would greet each and every one of you personally, as a result of which I commence by saying, Senator, the Honorable, I don't know why this just says Reid. Good thing I know his name. Senator the Honorable Royal Reid, CD, JP, Minister of Education, Youth and Information. Mr. Dean Roy Bernard, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Education, Youth and Information. Dr. Grace McLean, Chief Education Officer. Dr. Winsome Gordon, Chief Executive Officer of the Jamaica Teaching Council. Reverend Wayne Smith, Pastor of the Lilliput Circuit of Baptist Churches. Dr. Garth Henry, President of the Jamaica Teachers Association. Garth Anderson, that one is not a typo, that one is a writer. I wrote it down, I'm sorry. Dr. Claudia Uribe, Director, Regional Bureau for Education in Latin America and the Caribbean. Dr. Charmaine Villet, Co-Chair of the International Task Force on Teachers for Education 2030. Dr. Edem Adrubra, Head of the Secretariat of the International Task Force on Teachers for Education 2030. Mrs. Catherine Grigsby, Director, UNESCO Kingston Cluster Office. Syriac Sena Yawo Akakpo, Permanent Technical Secretary for the Togolese Education Sector Plan. Her Excellency, Ms. Sengduane Lakantaboon, Minister of Education and Sports of the Lao People's Democratic Republic. Ms. Melis Reps, Minister of Education and Research of the Republic of Estonia. His Excellency, Mr. Al-Nuami Abdullah, Ambassador and Permanent Delegate of the UAE to UNESCO. And after all of those names, I can go home today and tell my daughter, who studies languages, that I did some practice on foreign languages myself. Dr. Maria Smith, Jamaica National Commission for UNESCO, members of the Steering Committee of the International Task Force on Teachers, other distinguished delegates and guests of UNESCO, local representatives, heads of agencies and directors in the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, educators, online, viewers and from across the world, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, good morning. And I pause to take a deep breath. I apologize on behalf of my minister, who is unfortunately unable to be here in body with you this morning, but I can assure you that she's here in spirit. Jamaica is pleased to be hosting this, the annual meeting and 11th Policy Dialogue Forum in the beautiful city of Montego Bay. We are also extremely proud to be the first country in the Caribbean to host this important UNESCO event, joining with countries such as Ethiopia, Jordan, Indonesia, India, Namibia, Togo, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Morocco, Mexico, and Colombia. The hosting of this event is a coordinated approach involving various arms of the government of Jamaica, including the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, the Jamaica Teaching Council and agency of that ministry, the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport, and our agency, the Jamaica National Commission for UNESCO, working together with the International Task Force in Education 2030. The theme, Strengthening Teacher Education, a prerequisite for quality teaching, training, and learning, is indeed timely, as it focuses on issues pertaining to the skills and competencies of teachers and trainers to meet the needs of learners, to improve teacher quality and performance, and to improve the quality of learning. The consistent focus on SDG 4, quality education through the Education 2030 Framework for Action, will not only allow for us to achieve the stated objectives of the forum, but also provide us with the pertinent recommendations required for the achievement of SDG 4. Policy dialogues such as these are needed to confront and dissect the perspectives of different constituents while trying to unpack the meaning and implications of the teacher target and its importance to the other SDG 4 targets. The focus on teacher quality is very important, and there is evidence that this is a key factor affecting student outcomes and therefore has always been central to the world education community's initiatives geared towards initial teacher education and continuous professional development. Jamaica, as a member of the UNESCO Executive Board for the 2017 to 2021 period, is well placed to ensure that the discussions, recommendations, and actions resulting from the discussion of the different sub-themes in the various regional group meetings are given the necessary attention and support at the highest level in UNESCO. We welcome for the first time the ministerial panel, where ministers will share perspectives on the critical issue of teacher education. I pause therefore to welcome all the ministers and regional representatives who have joined us here in Jamaica to make this a truly international event. My ministry is pleased to be integrally involved and associated with this International Policy Dialogue Forum. I am confident that the results and decisions and recommendations emanating from not only the input sessions, discussion sessions, and wrap-up sessions, together with those from the regional group meetings, will no doubt make this forum a truly positive and enhancing one. I anticipate that you will achieve your expected outcomes, including the sharing of information to assist the development of prospective policies, developing common understanding of the current state of teacher and trainer competencies and how they relate to learning outcomes. Distinguished participants, notwithstanding the very tight and intense agenda, please find the time, as the Mayor indicated, to enjoy the beauty of Jamaica and specifically the city of Montego Bay. I invite you to experience and enjoy our rich cultural expressions in the diverse forms that exist right here. I commend all the organizers for their intense engagement and work in ensuring that this forum is successful. In closing, as I stood here and looked out at the audience, looking so resplendent this morning, and as indicated, a very international audience, I am reminded of a story that I hope will pep up your morning. As the story goes, the Minister of National Security in a small Caribbean island was taken on a visit to one of the country's prisons. After touring the prison, he came down and found that they had gathered a group of the prisoners, and impromptu they asked him to address them. He wasn't sure what to say. So he took a deep breath and looked out at them and said, "It gives me great pleasure to see so many of you here." As I look down this morning, I must say that it also gives me great pleasure to see so many of you here. And I am happy for the purpose that we are here and that we are not in prison. I wish you all the best for a successful event. Thank you.
Named after one of Jamaica's premier visual artists, Edna Manley, the Edna Manley College of the Visual and Performing Arts is renowned for producing some of the Caribbean's most notable visual and performing artists. The following piece is an excerpt from a work by visiting Haitian choreographer from the School of Dance, Sheng Bang Black Shad, which symbolizes Caribbean experiences of work, unity, community, and finding joy in togetherness in any situation. The dancers are currently in full-time study at the college and represent the cultural diversity of the Caribbean, with dancers from Jamaica, Grenada, and St. Martin, truly reflective of the college's mission, which says to enrich the aesthetic sensibilities and promote the cultural diversity of the Caribbean through the highest quality education and training in visual and performing arts. Ladies and gentlemen, the Edna Manley College of the Visual and Performing Arts.
She's
Global worthy performance from the Edna Manley College of the Visual and the Performing Arts. I hope you enjoyed that one. Beautiful rendition there. Before we continue, we must recognize and thank our sponsors, who include Global Partnership for Education, the World Bank, NORAG, International Council for Education, for Teaching, International Development Bank, the Caribbean Development Bank, and GIF Germany. The national sponsors, including local sponsors, Jamaica National, National Housing Trust, Heart Trust NTA, Tip Friendly Society, Jamaica Teachers Association, JSIF, the Caribbean Maritime University, Edna Manley College of the Visual and Performing Arts, Sam Sharp Teachers College, Digicel, Jamaica Constabulary Force, LASCO affiliated companies, Tasty Patties, Money Musk Plantation, and Petrocarib. Please put your hands together for the sponsors. My pleasure is now to invite Dr. Claudia Urube, Director of the Regional Bureau for Education in Latin America and the Caribbean, for her presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Master of Ceremonies. And this is a very hard act to follow, this beautiful performance. And thank you to the performers. Dear Councillor Mr. Homer Davis, Mayor of Montego Bay, Honorable Senator Rule Reid, Minister of Education, Youth and Information of Jamaica, Mr. Denzel Thorpe, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport, Mr. Dean Roy Bernard, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, Jamaica, Ms. Grace McLean, Chief Education Officer, Minister of Education, Youth and Information, Ms. Winsome Gordon, Chief Executive Officer, Jamaica Teaching Council, Reverend Wayne Smith, Pastor, Lilliput Circuit of Baptist Churches, Ms. Charmaine Willett, Co-Chair of the International Task Force on Teachers for Education 2030, Ms. Catherine Grigsby, Director, UNESCO Kingston Cluster Office for the Caribbean, Mr. Edem Adubra, Head of the Secretariat of the International Task Force on Teachers for Education 2030, Mr. Siriak Sena Yawo Akapo, Permanent Technical Secretary of the Togolese Education Sector Plan, Her Excellency Ms. Senduane Laktantabune, Minister of Education and Sports of the Lao People's Democratic Republic, Her Excellency Ms. Melis Reps, Minister of Education and Research of the Republic of Estonia, members of the Steering Committee of the International Task Force on Teachers, other distinguished delegates of UNESCO, dear ministers, excellencies, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is a great pleasure to be here on the occasion of the 11th Policy Dialogue Forum of the International Task Force on Teachers for Education 2030, one of the most important fora to discuss teacher and education policies. This year's forum focuses on strengthening teacher education as a prerequisite for quality teaching, training, and learning. This issue is of crucial importance given the ambition of SDG 4 Education 2030, and particularly Target 4.C, which captures the commitment of the international community to substantially increase the supply of qualified teachers by 2030. If we really want to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education for all, one of the main challenges is the training, recruitment, and development of teachers. We need teachers and educators who are highly motivated, well-trained and qualified, and the professionalization of in-service teachers in those contexts where they lack the knowledge or qualifications to perform the work they already carry out. These challenges entail a number of issues that need to be addressed, which transcend capacity building and teacher training, but that have an important impact upon teacher development. For example, making the teacher profession more attractive, elevating the status of the teacher trade as convened in the joint ILO-UNESCO recommendation concerning the status of teachers from 1966, and the UNESCO recommendation concerning the status of higher education teaching personnel from 1997, means revising the working conditions such as stability, remuneration, career prospects, among others, as well as the social standing of teachers. Even though a plethora of studies and reports have concluded that teacher effectiveness has a direct impact on student performance and well-being, and that teacher quality beyond the socioeconomic conditions of students and the context of the educational process is the single most important in-school factor influencing student achievement, teachers remain under-recognized and underappreciated. A consequence of this lack of recognition is the fact that they are seldom consulted or get to participate in decision-making and policy formulation processes, and that the teaching profession is not one of the most appealing careers for the best students going into tertiary education. One more challenge for teacher development is the mushrooming of accountability regimes that tend to blame the teacher for the failure of learners and of education itself. This trend of shifting responsibility from the state onto the individual learners and teachers, and sometimes even families, has been accentuated by a recent claim of a learning crisis and by poor results in standard and large-scale testing. Even though there is a legitimate concern with the quality of teaching, this alone cannot be construed as the sole reason for underperformance. There is a need to examine structural factors like the funding of education, the quality of educational infrastructure and learning environments, the curriculum, and the educational materials, among other factors that depend on educational authorities and other actors apart from teachers. The same can be said about enhancing equity and inclusion in education. Realizing the pledge of leaving no one behind requires measures of both teacher development and education system change that are interconnected. In terms of the latter, policies are needed to overcome the barriers, be it structural, situational, or motivational, that prevent access, participation, and achievement in education, while in terms of the former, there is a need of better knowledge of who the most vulnerable population groups are, the sources of their vulnerability, and how to address this pedagogically. In terms of teacher development, this means providing teachers with opportunities for professional training, education, and support to deal with different population groups, ethnically, culturally, and linguistically diverse, so as to improve their practice, and in so doing, improve the quality of education and their students' learning. This can be done, for example, by producing qualification frameworks for the teaching profession that may guide the process of recruitment, retention, professional development, remuneration, and evaluation. Another avenue to improve the quality of teaching is by developing standards for teachers that may help elucidate what is needed from them in terms of quality, equity, and inclusion. Teacher standards may be helpful in defining the different elements and degrees of knowledge, practice, and professional engagement that are needed and required from teachers, and in providing ethical standards. The definition of knowledge needed, content, pedagogies, cognitive development, the experience in imparting class and developing and maintaining safe and conducive learning environments, and the participation of teachers in constant training and reflective practices is likely to improve teacher development. These and other strategies have been explored, researched, and systematized around the world in many different countries and educational levels, but sometimes these good practices are not communicated, thus losing their potential for reflection and replicability. It is UNESCO's tradition as a clearinghouse to bring all stakeholders together to discuss different perspectives on education and to find the policy solutions necessary to bring SDG 4 to fruition. The forum that we begin today is the perfect occasion to strengthen collaboration between governments, international organizations, teacher unions, experts, and practitioners to generate new ideas to improve the quantity and quality of teaching globally. On behalf of UNESCO and its Regional Office for Education in Latin America and the Caribbean, I wish you the most fruitful discussions in the days to come. Thank you very much for your attention.
I now invite to the lectern Dr. Charmaine Villet, the co-chair of the International Task Force on Teachers.
Thank you, Director of Ceremonies. Honorable Ministers of Education, the protocols have been beautifully established. So in the interest of time, I'm just going to say I observe the already established protocols. I do want to just also bring greetings from Namibia, and the Commissioner from Jamaica to Namibia, Professor Earl Taylor, called me in the morning before I left and asked me to please send his greetings to his people in Jamaica. So I'm sending you his greetings. I also want to acknowledge my two colleagues from Namibia who joined me here today, or for the time being that we're going to be here. The Deputy Permanent Secretary, Mr. Kabachani, is there, and the Director of Education that has joined. So good to be with them. The latest data released by UNESCO's Institute for Statistics show that over 600 million children and adolescents worldwide are not reaching minimum proficiency in reading and mathematics, even though 2/3 of them are in schools. For these young people, schooling produces very little knowledge to enable them to lead successful lives, a situation which is often referred to in the literature as the global learning crisis. It is not a secret that teachers have a telling impact on learners and their successful learning. However, globally we invest very minimally in the deliberate development of the one professional that is now our greatest educational asset. Andreas Schleicher from the Farkey GEMS Report 2013 recalls how many of us were lucky enough to have had some great teachers who inspired us, who opened up new worlds for us, and whom we remember as people who changed the course of our lives or deepened the meaning of it. It is therefore the vision of the TTF that every learner is taught by a qualified, motivated, and empowered teacher. And our mission is to mobilize governments and other stakeholders to advance the quality of teachers and teaching through advocacy, knowledge creation and sharing, and country support and engagement. These are the three pillars upon which the TTF strategic plan is built, and it is aligned with the SDG 4 Education 2030 framework. The Policy Dialogue Forum, which brought us here to Jamaica today, is one of the flagship initiatives. This year, our theme focuses on strengthening teacher education, a prerequisite for quality teaching, training, and learning. Our expert teachers will engage participants in topics around the knowledge, skills, and competences for teacher development and training, skills and competences for work, promoting equal learning opportunities for all through teacher education, digital learning, and continuing professional development. Our deliberations will be contained in a report that will point us in the direction that we need to go to alleviate the global learning crisis. It is, after all about our children's future. So on behalf of the TTF members, the steering committee, and the secretariat, we want to thank the Jamaican government and the people of Jamaica, especially Dr. Winsome and the team, for the excellent organization of this year's TTF, for the very gracious manner in which you have received us into your beautiful country, for the splendid hospitality, the ever-present support of all our participants, or to all our participants rather, the food, the beautiful cocktails, but most of all, the no problem Jamaica vibes. So, to the people of the parish of St. James in Montego Bay, your hospitality and love will be an everlasting and thankful memory. Idam and your team at the headquarters, thank you from the bottom of our hearts for choosing this splendid place. And I thank you all for listening. Thank you.
Jamaica is known for its rich musical heritage, giving the world over 7 genres, of which reggae is king. In 2016, Kingston was designated by UNESCO as a creative city for music for its contribution to reggae. The Edna Manley College for the Visual and Performing Arts remains at the center of this rich heritage as it continues to provide the highest quality training and music performance as well as education. We now welcome students from the School of Music, Edna Manley College of the Visual and Performing Arts, to perform an arrangement of reggae icon Bob Marley's One Love, a collaborative arrangement between Director of Studies of the School of Music, Andre Adman, and the students. I'm sure you can do much better than that for the Edmund College. I've done very well for morning, high quality performance right here at the Montego Bay Convention Center. It is my distinct pleasure now to invite to the lectern Dr. Idim Adubro, the head of the Secretariat of the International Task Force on Teachers for Education 2030.
Thank you, Director of Ceremonies. Senator the Honorable Will Reid, CDJP, Minister of Education, Youth and Sport of the Kingdom of Jamaica. Of the Kingdom, Excellencies, Ministers of Education, all protocol observed. Mine is just to tell you what will happen in the course of this week. But as I see you all holding this agenda, I will start and focus on what you will not see in this agenda, but which is the most important agenda item of this week's deliberations. It will pain me, it will be disservice to the organizers, to the government of Jamaica, to the JTC team who spent sleepless nights to put this together, to just walk out of here on Friday or Saturday and say that it was a fabulous conference, it was a wonderful hospitality, we enjoyed, we've made friends. The core of the discussions within the teacher task force this week, before this week, is how to ensure that we deliver on what happens when we meet. So the most important thing is of the agenda item is not what will happen this week here, but what we commit to do and effectively do when we go back to our organizations, we go back to our countries. It is not simply submitting mission report to our supervisors. It is not only resting. It is not only waiting for the final report to be disseminated, to read. It is to take action on the conclusions and the recommendations that you will adopt. We have organized too many conferences. We have spent so much money sending our officers to conferences. We have gone to New York to adopt the Sustainable Development Goals. We met in Paris to adopt a framework of action for how to implement the SDG 4 on teachers. How many of those commitments have we started taking action on? But as the International Task Force on Teachers, the only international partnership that focus on teaching and teachers globally, which gather partners from government, international organizations, teacher union representatives, civil society organizations, and the private sector organizations. We believe that it is our responsibility, and then we could avail that wealth of expertise to the international community and to the national authorities to deliver at least on the teacher target. The co-chair just highlighted how many children are out there not learning. The statistics we put in our speeches to reflect how many teachers more we need to recruit, to train. Yes, those materials exist, those records exist. Those communications are on our website. What do we do? So this week, now to come back to the agenda, this week we have chosen to have statutory discussions about how to make the implementation of the strategic plan of the task force work We are going to be in the second year starting 2019. 1 year has gone. We have 4-year plan. What can we do in the second year to make sure that we have started acting concretely on some of the things we said we should do? That's the reason of our steering committee meeting and the task force meeting. We want the focal points of the task force who sit in steering committee, those who are the representative of the region, to take back what is in the plan, what will be the outcome, lessons learned from this forum, and go back and as region, say what is our region doing to follow up on this. Then we have the forum itself. We know that there is a need to have more information and knowledge of good practices. We will have keynote speech, we will have breakout sessions, and the 4 breakout sessions of the forum will be more input. When we move to the groups, the second breakout session will be, yes, we have listened to people saying what they do, but we too, we do this. We wonder how this could be done in our context. So that will be the discussion in the second breakout session. To be able to gather something to take away with, the third breakout session will say, okay, we have listened to all those things, we have discussed, we have asked questions. What lessons have we learned? What conclusions can we draw? What gaps in knowledge, resources are there? What recommendations can we make to ourselves? What are we going to do before expecting? What should the government go and do? What will the task force and UNESCO go and do? So after that, we'll share that in a plenary again, where we share the report of all the sessions. And we will adopt a recommendation, and then we have a wonderful closing ceremony, and then we'll take our flights, we'll go back home. The core agenda item will be, what are we prepared to do? So we look forward to hearing from you, not from your applause when we finish the things and say, it was a fabulous conference. Please come to me and say, congratulations, Adam, but also tell me, I'm committing to do A, B. Don't worry about the C. I'm committing to do A, B when we leave here. And I will be happy to read your mails. I will be happy to see the report of how you share the outcome with your ministries, with constituencies in your countries, and excellencies ministers. This is the first time we are having a ministerial panel. So you are a pioneer, high-level officers in inaugurating that practice in our policy dialogue forum. Allow me to invite you to be the pioneer of our advocate, to spread the word when you go to your regional meetings, when you go to your governments, when you go to your parliaments, when you go to the UNESCO General Conference, when you go to the UN, when you go to any forum or platform, to say that teachers are central to achieving SDGs. But before you achieve them, we need to train them. That's the prerequisite for quality teaching, training, and learning for all. I thank you. Before I finish, I will invite the technician to put up our Teacher Task Force song, because we are doing all this to value teachers. And then for a few years now, we have adopted this song to be our anthem. Is somebody working on that? It's here too? No? Okay, I hope we can follow on the 2 screen. It's simple. It is an adaptation of We Are the World. So, can I take this mic off? I will try to sing first, and if the band is ready, they can accompany me, but I will invite everybody to follow with me. It says, let's value teachers, improve their status. They are the ones who make brighter day, so let's support them. It's the goals we're achieving. We're saving our own lives. It's true we'll make a better world, just you and me. Let's value teachers, improve their status. They are the ones who make a brighter day, so let's support them. It's a goal to achieve. We're saving our own lives. It's true we'll make a better world, just you and me. Wonderful. Once again, let's value teachers, improve their status. They are the ones who make it better, so let's support them. It's a goal to achieve. We're saving our own lives. It's true we'll make a better world, just you and me. Thank you very much. You are also wonderful singers.
I'm going to send Dr. Liberto Ednamadi. Send you there. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and welcome Senator the Honorable Royal Reid, Minister of Education, Youth and Information, our guest speaker, who will also declare open the forum.
Thank you very much, Master of Ceremonies, Mr. Darren Henry. I want to recognize the protocol that has already been established to our permanent secretaries, colleagues, ministers, His Worship the Mayor, President of the Jamaica Teachers Association. I want to recognize him and membership, since it's all about the teachers. And they are the world, all world. Delegates, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues all, this is the day that the Lord has made, yes? So let us rejoice and be glad in it. So to my visitors, this is Jamaica, Kingdom of Jamaica. And we have a kingdom up there, so we don't start anything in the Kingdom of Jamaica without recognizing the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. I want to thank the organizers of this event and pay particular recognition to Dr. Wilson Gordon, who I got to remind so much of the story in the Bible. The person keep knocking, and like a bees in my ear. And I said, just go to Pierce, just go to Pierce, just go to Pierce. Oh yeah, I was talking about you. Put your hands together. Put your hands together. But it's really awesome, and so very timely. I thought I just want to just make a quick connection. As a historian, to put a lot of what we're talking about in terms of teacher education in context, just for connection, where we're coming from in terms of formal education. So I'm not going to go Patrick Smith to the full history, but earliest years of writing was somewhere around 3,500 BC. And that developed into hieroglyphics in Europe. The Phoenician writing system adapted from the Proto-Canaan script, and then you had the Arabic script, early Oracle bone script, pre-Columbian script such as the Maya script. Perhaps the history tells us the earliest formal school was developed in Egypt's Middle Kingdom under the direction of one Kiti, treasurer to the king, in what became Mesopotamia. The early logographic system of cuneiform script took many years to master, thus only a limited number of individuals were hired as scribes to be trained in its reading and writing. Only royal offsprings and sons of the rich and professionals such as scribes, physicians, and temple administrators were schooled. Boys were taught their father's trade, and girls stayed home with their mothers and learned housekeeping and cooking. In Babylonian times, there were libraries in most towns and temples, and men and women learned to write. And we can go back and Google that, and you look at the movement into the Middle East, Indian subcontinent, China, Greece, and Rome, and then, just for connection, hasten into formal education in the Middle Ages, between 580 to 1500 AD. Again, you see the important role the church played in that period and where we are now. So I soon come to 2018. During the early Middle Ages, the monasteries of the Roman Catholic Church were the centers of education and literacy, preserving the church's selection from Latin learning and maintaining the art of writing. Prior to their formal establishment, many medieval universities were run for hundreds of years as Christian monastic schools in which monks taught classes and later at cathedral schools, and I didn't find any strong, what I would call specialization in the art of teaching. So a lot of the early teaching does evolve out of simply being a member of the clergy. The first medieval institutions generally considered by universities were established in Italy, France, England in the late 11th and 12th centuries for the study of arts, law, medicine, and theology. A flowering of art, architecture, and literature, known as the Carolingian Renaissance, took place between 765 to 814 AD under the reign of one called Charlemagne. Cathedral schools and monasteries remained important throughout the Middle Ages. At the Third Lateran Council of 1179 AD, the church mandated that priests provide the opportunity of a free education to their flocks in a renaissance known as the scholastic movement. And just for connection again, in the 15th and 16th centuries, the town of Timbuktu, yeah, that's a name, past president, in West Africa, the nation of Mali became the Islamic center of learning with students coming from as far away as the Middle East. And the first, and where was the first university established? Which country? Your country? Morocco? Mali. All right, okay. So I started with that because sometimes ministers of education and we get beat up about teacher quality and education, but it's connect where we're coming from. Because I've never seen where, when the world started and when we started to provide mass education across the world, there was the ready cadre of trained and certified persons that we call teachers. In fact, we ourselves have been having a dialogue of whether teaching is a profession or is it a calling. But remember, it started in a sense as a calling. The churches largely were the one whom it evolved. And you're largely trained to feed the flock in another sense, and not really with the preparation of teaching. And so in more specific terms, if it is, which the world has really evolved there, with no child left behind. Every child can learn, every child must learn. So if you are going to have that philosophy of which UNESCO is advocating, what are those things that are preparatory? What are those variables that must be in place to achieve that particular objective? And so the evolution, Dr. Gordon, of brain-based education, so there is a nexus between health and education, right? Finland pretty much perfected that. Cuba, I like to refer to, and other countries have now followed on the importance of early childhood education, which is where we in Jamaica now have embraced the importance of the first 1,000 days, because the fact is, President, if our children are born healthy, with healthy brains, exposed to learning opportunities, they are going to learn. They're going to learn. And so the challenge we have is the view of inclusive education, that in that vision of inclusiveness, there is still diversity, because not all our children are equal. And therefore, the notion of even what you call mass education and how we organize teaching also need to be restored, because ideally what you need is customization. Yes, I know you want some social skills and all of that, but it is, when you talk about differentiated instruction, how do I customize so each student is being catered to? So when you have large classrooms, it's a constraint, because if those children, that's why in early childhood you try to have smaller ratio, because what you want is to ensure that no child is being left behind, which is different from a large group like this university can have 10,000 students, or in fact, frankly, you could actually teach 10,000 or a million students, one teacher, if assuming that it's a homogeneous group. Are you with me? Yes, that can happen. So, where we are in this discussion, and therefore I join in welcoming you all to this year's annual meeting of the International Teachers Task Force and the 11th Policy Dialogue Forum. To our overseas delegates, a very warm welcome again on behalf of our Mayor, our Prime Minister, and the government of Jamaica to the greatest and loveliest city on earth, Montego Bay. The theme of our conference, Strengthening Teacher Education, a prerequisite for quality teaching and learning, is indeed timely as we grapple with how best to better prepare teachers to be change agents across different school systems in our various countries. And I'm again cognizant that we're not all starting the same place, and therefore there has to be customization, and the dialogue is for us to hear different experiences, best practice. In fact, I look forward to talking to my colleague from Namibia. Namibia, for example, when I spoke to your minister, you speak 11 different languages, Jamaican teachers, in Namibia. So therefore, it's a big challenge for teachers to move from one area to the next where they speak a different language. They would have to be multilingual in that regard. So all these are nuances that we have to deal with in our different countries. It is a universally accepted philosophy, albeit in varying degrees, that education is one of the most important pillars of our society to prepare our children for the future, as well as for social and economic development of our countries. And that has been largely adopted by the United Nations. It was never always that way, and I again remind us that at the early part of the 20th century, less than 20% of the global population was going to school. Let us remember that, UNESCO. That's why I have a part of the teacher shortage. Okay. In addition, as we seek to enable our students to develop critical and inventive thinking skills, information and communication skills, civic literacy, as well as global awareness, we must be mindful that there can be very little success in these areas without adequately trained teachers to prepare them. Teacher quality is therefore a key factor affecting student outcomes and is a central to the world education community's initiatives geared towards initial teacher education and continuous professional development. In this regard, we are guided by the Incheon Declaration of May 2015. We will ensure that teachers and educators are empowered, adequately recruited, well-trained, professionally qualified, motivated, and supported within well-resourced, efficient, and effectively governed systems. The Declaration of the World Education Forum 2015, held in the Republic of Korea, articulates the commitment of the education community to Education 2030 and the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, recognizing the important role of education as a main driver of development. Against the background of that commitment and a rapidly changing global environment, we recognize that schools have to be adaptable, flexible, and innovative to prepare our students for whatever the future may bring. For this to take place, our teachers must be also the embodiment of adaptability and flexibility and model this for their students. And I must tell you that I'm now challenged because my 2 devices for the last couple of days have been telling me that every time I log on to my PDF or Word, I need to update. And of course, my phone, I have software, I saw it this morning, and I haven't had the time to do that yet. So I say that we're in a very dynamic, evolving environment. So the education system, the content, the curriculum that we talked about many decades ago, that's not the same. So our profession, like all of the professions, not just teaching, we have to be adaptable and we have to be flexible. Since the adoption, Dr. Gordon and members, delegates of the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, and the Incheon Declaration and Education 2030 Framework for Action, the International Task Force on Teacher Education 2030 over the past few years has revamped its efforts to make valuable contributions to close the gap between teacher quantity and quality. And so, since I'm still a trade unionist by heart, I remember when I wrote, and President, I still have that article every time I was doing HRM at the time, and I was doing research on a compensation strategy for the teaching profession. And so I teach in the high box that what we want is high quality, high accountability, and high pay. All right, so that's what I just wanted to tell you that is where my headspace is, all right? So if you keep me in this position long enough, that is what you're gonna get. All right, Mr. President. With the 3 strategic areas of its work having been revisited, namely advocacy, knowledge creation and sharing, and country support and engagement, the annual Policy Dialogue Forum provides an even greater opportunity to share experiences and develop strategies for improving teacher quality, status, teaching, and learning. I also, want us to bear in mind, although sometimes we don't want to say so, Dr. Gordon, that the extent that we say, and I think probably when it was said, teaching is a calling, right? I don't think there needs to be necessarily a big debate about, and yes, I agree, it should be a calling to become the professional teacher, yes? And in that calling, it means that you should be the right fit. Are you with me? Because not everybody and anybody should be a teacher. Hello? Hello? Okay. All right. So I just want to be very clear on that. Because you're going to, and it's part of managing quality anyway. If I was to compare manufacturing, if you want a very good product, you're going to make sure you choose the highest quality raw materials, ain't it? You students, you're not talking to the master teacher this morning. Hello? Yes? Do I get a forward? All right. Don't make me just stand and stretch. You want to stand and stretch? You sitting too long? Are you all right? Wave your hand if you're all right. Wave your hand if you're all right. Wave your hand if you're all right. Wave your hand in Montego Bay. All right, good. Put them down now. The Policy Dialogue Forum, such as this week's Montego Bay, we therefore are useful in providing perspectives from different constituencies while trying to unpack the meaning and implications of teacher targets and its importance to other SDG 4 targets. They serve also to disseminate knowledge and experiences on key concepts and have been proposed by the task force to all those organizations working on teachers as a hub for discussing different approaches to theory and practice on teachers and teaching as experimented in various settings. For all these reasons, the Annual Policy Dialogue Forum is a valid program for the Teacher Task Force members and partners, and include as a flagship activity the TTF 2018 to 2021 strategic plan. It is necessary also to address teacher education in a broad and clear teacher policy framework. This is why teacher policy development was introduced as an effective move to support countries to refrain from tackling teacher education as a standalone step. The Teacher Policy Development Guide, published by UNESCO 2015, seeks to analyze other dimensions of the teaching profession and intertwine and affect teacher education. To this end, Policy Dialogue 4 over the past 3 years have been creating niches to promote a holistic approach to teacher policy reforms and to share country by country experiences. Yet, we must remind ourselves, ladies and gentlemen, delegates, brothers and sisters, that for any policy and practice to be effective and successful, it has to be guided by sound and evidence-based principles distilled through rigorous research. Education is highly contextualized, and one set of policies and practices that works in one system cannot just be brought over wholesale without considering very rare differences in context. So we debunk the notion of the consummate nurse who will give a Panadol for every complaint that the child has. You have to be like, I always say, though, for me, that perfect, if not ideal teacher is like a doctor, a clinician that looks at the individual student and can diagnose and understand the social and psychoeducational needs of that student. And indeed, the students in the class collectively, and be able to construct a prescriptive learning approach to meet the needs of every one of those learners under their charge. Here in Jamaica, for example, Permanent Secretary, our ministry has embarked on a strategy, therefore, to support early stimulation program in selected institutions. This strategy, as I alluded to earlier, was developed based on best practices we saw having visited Canada, Cuba, Finland, Trinidad and Tobago, other parts of the United States, as well as based on research on the importance, as I laid before, the first 1,000 days of a child's life, which is from conception. Importantly, those early years when the brain is developing rapidly if we get that wrong. So what the fields have done, master that. Make sure that you actually have strong parenting support, paternity leave, along with maternity leave, a strong focus on the family in those early years. One development officer to every 5 children. Making sure that they are developing emotionally and cognitively appropriately. That is the foundation. And so one of the challenges we've had is most societies had formal education beginning at grade 1, age 6 or 7, but without the early support. Because it's fine to start the children at 6, 7 formally, but in Finland, they did not leave the vacuum. Every child was accounted for. And yes, having been in the classroom, I understand the struggles and the groanings of our teachers, because in grade 1, if they come ill-prepared in a classroom of 40, 50, 60, it's impossible. So we are in an interesting place in Jamaica, where we had a struggle many years ago with a rapidly increasing birth rate. That has been stemmed. And so we've seen almost a 25% reduction in our fertility rate since the 1970s. And where we were having official people-teacher ratio of 1 to 35, and this is a policy directive that I've crafted, that we are going to focus particularly with our primary schools to make sure that in no class there are more than 25 students to a teacher as a staff. This strategy of the first 1,000 days is now being endorsed and supported by G20 countries, and I'm asking UNESCO to adopt this as a key foundational strategy for inclusive education globally. This strategy was developed based on an analysis of the strengths and challenges of the current early child development program in Jamaica. So we are now talking in Jamaica big, without no problem, the rest of the world, Falabakawi. So we have this bold initiative. Now, PS, I'm elevating from just the K to 30 strategy now, from the womb to the tomb. That is what we are talking about as our education system. So it includes the foundation and, of course, lifelong learning. So we get in one bold statement, we cover everybody. Right, Reverend? From the womb to the tomb. So all you think the tomb is down there, tomb is up there. It is recognized that there are services that all children need. These include high quality and responsive parenting based on the knowledge of child development, parenting education and support to ensure parents understand the importance of parenting on brain development. Preventative and curative health. Healthcare that is also anticipatory, guidance with nutrition, early stimulation and early learning opportunities, and protection from violence, abuse, and neglect in all of its forms. In fact, we are reminded about how those 3 ingredients of genetics, environment, and experience impact on the brain. So even though children might be born healthy, if toxic environment and encounters, traumatic experiences can alter that. And we wonder why sometimes our children are not learning. This is not necessarily the fault of their minister, of the teacher. Teacher can't really fix some of those deficiencies. So we have to ensure that we have these services that are able to better serve and prepare our children, and indeed support it. Because when we talk about special education, special needs, it means therefore we have to be supportive of those children right through life. In fact, I went to a particular state, I believe it was Dr. McLean, well, he didn't come to Philadelphia, he went to me in Florida. But just to segue a little bit in terms of special needs, I've often said, by the way, which is where I've been trying to change our thinking, Dr. Gordon, in Jamaica, that the notion, so on one hand we can't talk about lifelong learning and then put a demarcation and say, well, if the children don't achieve by this age, then we abandon them. In fact, it's the opposite. Because all children are not going to learn, they're not at the same developmental stage. So you have to have a longitudinal approach. You will have the state, sorry. And once you're defined, by the way, as having special needs, you have to journey with them to as long as they need to get to the destination. So the best practices, by the way, in terms of classic special needs, the state gives support up to age 33 because there are persons who have chronic developmental challenges. So it makes no sense that we leave them behind. And if we talk about inclusive education, you have to have the affirmative policies that support it. So ministers, it's something that you'll have to look at within our education policies. The strategy, as I outlined in relation to focus on those early years, and in Jamaica, we have the Early Child Commission, which many of you have seen their booth, and we have established 12 important standards. Those standards are very important, and we try to hold everybody to those standards. I mean, there's a time when we thought that those standards were unachievable. We know that they are achievable. We may have to change the structure of some institution. As I said, the reduction in the birth has opened up some opportunities for us, where our population decline has allowed us to add infant departments in many primary schools that had, significantly declining populations. And government is better able to resource because generally across most countries, I should make a point. It's kind of strange. Most countries, in fact, I don't know of any country right now. Trinidad did a little aggressive move to establish early child institutions. But I don't know of any country, I want UNESCO to tell me, I don't know of any country that has full, free, public early child education system. Not even Singapore. I know Singapore are trying to decide where they're going with this. Right? And as I said, Finland found a solution, which is if you're not going to have the state investing in that institutional framework, then you will have to use the state. That's why the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Labor and Social Security is very important in Jamaica, to work within the communities with parents to assist them in early stimulation and appropriate developmental growth. Strengthening teacher education in order to guarantee quality teaching, training, and learning for all, therefore, calls for policy options that include but also go beyond the sole sphere of teacher training and continuous professional development, with the types of training offered, their duration and objectives. Planning to reinforce teacher education also require policy dialogue among policymakers and practitioners, and may require a holistic approach to teacher competence, the profile and learner profile, as well as the negotiations of adequate allocation of resources. In sum, the proposed sub-theme of this forum has called for a discussion why teachers and educators' skills and competences have a bearing on many of the SDG 4 goals, including those related to knowledge and skills for labor, TVET, and equal chances for quality learning. As technical and vocational education and training staff is to be considered in the future as well, a whole sub-theme will be devoted also to discuss, one, strengthening teacher education in the TVET context, strengthening the education and training of teachers in company, very important point, in company trainers and instructors. The focus on TVET will remind all that trainers, instructors, and other education personnel represent an important group among teachers and educators. And for my colleagues in the JTA, this issue had to do with what we came to call the specialists. Patrick, where's that? Patrick Smith, are you here somewhere? Is Patrick Smith in the house? I saw him out there. Right, so specialists 1 and 2. Because these are the persons who, because we didn't have a structure. This is TVET, TVET vocational education. The teacher training institution were training for the classical education curriculum. And so in teacher education, though you want some of these skills to be taught in the formal school system, teachers were not so trained. So what you have now to take skilled persons, artisans in some instances, bring them into the game. But at the time, they were not trained teachers. So in the dialogue here, Doctor, you have to we have to have a discussion on mainstreaming. Because on the other spectrum, you know, in the interest of time, I would have done a whole lecture on it, but I don't have enough time on it. But just simply made a point that the history of education, by the way, not being in the church, was a very classic curriculum. And education for many centuries, because of the structure of economies you're talking about, it was largely agrarian primary production. So your mass of your labor force were never highly skilled, never highly educated. So many of them, your workers, they were what you call apprentices on the job training. And this is why in many countries, most of the workers are not trained and certified. But your economy in the fourth industrial revolution, in this 21st century now requires your workers to be all trained and certified at the highest level. So you now have to now inculcate, immerse, integrate some of those skills within your teacher training curriculum. Have teachers, because you don't want teachers. The definition of a teacher is either a person is an assistant teacher or some technician, but a teacher is a teacher. Can't be not a teacher. So if a person is going to be classified as a teacher, they must have a full package of the fully trained and certified person in whatever area of competence that you require. Or else, which is the heart of what the JTC, by the way, is trying to achieve. So if you're bringing specialists, a specialist is not the same as a teacher. Yes. And you can have a doctor who's a specialist, but he actually has to be a doctor. I'm saying you can have a specialist teacher. Notice what I'm saying? Specialist teacher is different from a specialist. Are you with me? A specialist, in other words, a person who is an IT specialist, a technician, ICT specialist or technician is not an IT teacher. Are you with me? For you to be an IT teacher, you must be trained in the pedagogy of teaching. Are you with me? And you bring the skills of IT with it, and you get your certificate, and that makes you a teacher. That's what we're talking about. And always, in every speech and in sermon, this is a word that you always look forward to hearing. Family. I just about 4 more minutes, or 5 minutes at least. Taking time. Finally, brethren and colleagues, I just want to touch briefly on our area, digital economy, use of technology in teaching and learning. And Mr. President, you and I will have dialogue on it, because as I said, to the extent I cannot keep your teachers in Jamaica, I'll have to use more ICT. So wherever they go, I can still have them teaching while they're away in a very virtual way. Right? That is one solution. Equally, I'm saying that I am prepared, Permanent Secretary, because we're a single terrorist institution, that there are key competencies that we need, that the government is prepared, as we already are doing, to fully fund teacher training and development and certification, provided that we are not bonding for at least 5 years, so there is a certainty in terms of the return on the investment, because we can't just invest in our teachers and then we don't have access to their services. And while we're on this platform talking about that, we also have to have some understanding about teacher migration. That's also a very, controversial issue. That countries don't exploit other persons. We have 69 million deficits in terms of teachers. 69 million teachers are short globally. So now you can understand why our teachers move. But technology, ladies and gentlemen, is being used in new ways in teacher professional development and training. New teacher education and training programs have turned to ICT as a means of professional development. UNESCO ICT competency framework for teachers, among the promising tools, is aimed at helping countries to develop comprehensive national teacher ICT competency policies and standards, and to harness digital facilities for professional learning. Yet policies and strategies for ICT competencies of teachers need to be spelled out and clearly in teacher education programs. This is an indispensable condition to tap into the digital learning advantages to promote continuous professional development. And I know Estonia our Minister from Estonia will share with us what you're doing in Estonia. And I can say that we can learn from you so we can pass it. Just the same way that Singapore came and learned from Jamaica and then passed, so we can learn, because we want to be the best digital economy in the world. Jamaica to the world. In fact, the integration of ICT in the teaching and learning process is one of the major revolutionary changes of our times, thanks to e-learning. Put your hands together for e-learning in Jamaica. Right? President Speed, don't worry about it. The PEP website and app is all there. Anything you need, you can find it there. The use of information and communication technologies such as internet application, video technology, and various computer attachment and software programs have caused many changes in our society. However, the impact on education may just be beginning to be felt as teachers integrate this new technology into their teaching. The knowledge-based, technology-driven world demands that our education system leverage information and communication technologies to equip citizens with literate, numerate, and ICT skills, and to develop citizens' competencies for critical thinking, complex communication, and innovation, as well as social responsibility in our digital world. The education sector is universally recognized as the foundation of any country's human resource development, and as such is charged with the responsibility of developing policies that guide the advancement in this process. So, ladies and gentlemen, in that particular regard, I believe we are in the cusp now of virtual classrooms. I'm seeing where we talk about flipping of the classroom. We're talking about the use of ICTs within the education system to help solve some of the fundamental problems with performance in our schools and harness the potential to produce citizens with ICT knowledge and skills to compete successfully in a fiercely competitive global environment. At the same time, the successful deployment and sustainability of ICTs in education depend on adequate resources. And I'm very happy that we have in Jamaica some assistance. We have the Tappington School program from the Universal Service Fund. We have funding from our budget from the Ministry of Finance. We have the Overseas Examination Commission that is giving us $190 million to provide computers to high schools and primary schools. And we also have the diaspora coming out of Silicon Valley in California that will be giving us up to 10,000 computers per year now for the primary schools in Jamaica. And Angels Foundation out of UK has also joined that. So we're really moving very, very rapidly to the digital education and the use of ICT and reality in a very universal way in our school system. Partnerships among regional and international donors will be critical to securing financial support and other resources for ICT in education programs. Continuous collaboration with relevant ministries for ICTs, private telecommunications service providers, and other private and public stakeholders must be initiated and sustained to garner budgetary support. So, ladies and gentlemen, on that note, I end. I encourage, therefore, all of us to seize the opportunity to interact and network with each other. Share your experiences and insight freely. And keep the conversation going even after this conference. Enjoy the lovely and friendly city of Montego. Let your hair down. Interact. Learn. And have a nice time. Together, in close partnership, we can shape our student lives and our shared future of a globally peaceful and prosperous world. Thank you.
Another round of applause for the Honourable Minister. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of the opening ceremony of the 11th Policy Dialogue Forum, the International Task Force on Teachers for Education. The stage has now been set for frank, rigorous, and open discourse on the theme, Strengthening Teacher Education, a prerequisite for quality teaching and learning. We welcome all our local and international delegates to the friendliest city in the Caribbean. And just before we go to the national anthem, I think the Minister is on his way back. Minister?
Thank you very much, Darren. I just committed to do my final rights, which is to, on behalf of the Prime Minister and the government of Jamaica, I, Royal Deary, Minister of Education and Youth Information, hereby declare this policy forum officially open.
Thank you very much, Minister. Just before we go to the national anthem, a few announcements to be made. Persons are being asked to register for the plenary and caucus groups on the outside. Also for the field trips, you will see Mr. Drisdale from the JTC. He's in the lobby area waiting for you to register for the plenary, the caucus group, and the field trips. The field trip is supposed to be on Friday to various schools. Now, for the program, it will continue. The plenary session will continue after a 15-minute coffee break. The program will run as scheduled. We'll have the press conference, and we'll have the rest of the program continuing. The plenary will resume in this room, D1, immediately after, so coffee break will be a little bit shorter, 15 minutes. You'll return for that, and of course, the program will run as is and as organized. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand.
much. Please leave your headphones on the seat. You'll return to them after the coffee break. Thank you very much. God bless you. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Darren, you know something?